Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for a special event that we're hosting this week. I'm Jackie Bement, one of the patient advocates at Massive Bio. As many of you know, Massive Bio is a concierge clinical trial enrollment service that strives to help patients discover and get access to advanced treatment through clinical trials. On today's episode, we will be speaking with two cancer survivors who have graciously offered to share their personal experiences with lymphoma clinical trials. First, you will be hearing from Laurie, who will be sharing her incredible clinical trial success story. Then we will speak with Mary, who is both a medical provider and a lymphoma cancer survivor herself. She will discuss the role clinical trials played in treating not only her lymphoma, but her son's cancer too. Also joining us today is Samantha Kingsbery, who is the lead clinical research nurse at Massive Bio. Samantha has been an oncology nurse for over 6 years and has worked on both the inpatient and outpatient side on both the East and West Coasts. So she comes with a lot of experience. She will be with us today to help answer some of your questions about Massive Bio and clinical trials in general. Let's get started now with Laurie Adami and hear her story.
Our main guest of the show today, Laurie Adami. So Laurie, thank you for joining us. Laurie is a lymphoma survivor and has participated in a few different clinical trials. So we've got some questions for her today, and I'm really hoping that this session is helpful to some of the other patients out there who may be thinking about participating in a clinical trial or just have questions in general. So Laurie, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here today.
Yeah. And we also have Kristen Johnston on the line with us. She is our Chief Nursing Officer here at Massive Bio as well. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
All right. So, Laurie, I just want to jump in and get started here. You have a really fantastic story to share, and we're grateful that you're here taking the time with us today to talk about this. So, I guess so. My first question is, obviously you're a cancer survivor, so congratulations there. We are always happy to hear those stories. But can you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis? Did you visit your doctor because you weren't feeling well initially, or how did that diagnosis come about?
Sure. So I was 46 years old, and I had started to experience some strange new health situations. I had begun to get a lot of sinus infections. I had a swollen node in my neck. I had a very dry eye and could no longer wear my contacts. And I was like a long-term contact lens wearer. And then I had felt something in my abdomen that was suggested it was a hernia. But most of all, I was really, really fatigued. And so something just wasn't right. And so I began to see doctors to try to get to the end, figure out what was going on. Mm-hmm. And on Good Friday, 2006, I had was given a CT scan to see what was going on. And they discovered that I had a grapefruit-sized mass in my abdomen.
Wow.
And extensive disease throughout my body. So, and at that point I was sent for a biopsy, and it was determined that I had a type of non-Hodgkin lymphoma called follicular non-Hodgkin. I was stage 4 and, obviously very sick, and all the health problems that I had been experiencing were a direct result of that non-Hodgkin lymphoma diagnosis. At the time, I was told that follicular non-Hodgkin is an incurable cancer, and, was given some pretty scary statistics at the time of my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Wow, Laurie, you've really been through so much. So from there, then how did a clinical trial kind of come into play?
Yeah.
Okay. So right out of the box, at the time, there was really one approved therapy that was sort of considered the big guns, if you will. It was called R-CHOP, which was a combination of a monoclonal antibody, Rituxan, and 4 chemo kind of alkylating agents. And because I had such extensive disease, and because I was stage 4, and because I was so sick, I was taken directly to that option as being my best shot for complete remission. So I had R-CHOP starting, just after my diagnosis, May of 2006, and underwent 6 cycles and of the therapy, every 3-week chemo, and at the end was declared in remission. And so, of course, was thrilled to hear I was in a complete remission after being so sick. But unfortunately, at my first follow-up scan, I had already relapsed. So 3 months later, I already had disease presentation in my lungs. And at that point, I was encouraged to do an auto stem cell transplant. And my cells had been harvested right after I got into complete remission. But I began to research an auto stem cell transplant for follicular non-Hodgkin. And what I discovered was that half of the patients who got a stem cell transplant at their first remission, or first relapse rather, after R-CHOP, relapsed after the stem cell transplant within the first year. Wow. And so I realized the odds weren't so great. And so that was when I thought, I've got to find a trial. I've got to find something else to do to buy time. Now, the trial that I ended up getting offered was actually an oral treatment. It was pills. And so it meant I could even do it from home, which, compared to being in the hospital for 3 or 4 weeks and complications, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer to try this because there was really no harm. And this trial that I got into, this drug that they were trialing for my disease, had already been approved for T-cell lymphomas. So I knew the safety profile had already been well established. So the risks were, appeared to be relatively modest compared to a stem cell transplant. And it was a phase 2 trial. So it was past that phase 1. So it was more of the dosing stage where they were determining the most effective dosing stage. So it was really not much of a choice for me to make.
Was it complicated to get enrolled? Or what did that process look like? And then once you were enrolled, how was your experience? Was the staff helpful? Did you need assistance with any additional information or travel or anything like that?
Okay, so compared to getting a stem cell transplant, it was a breeze. Good. And I was assigned a trial coordinator where I was being treated in this trial. And, she immediately reached out. They had to do biopsy, which, they would have for an auto transplant as well. So they had to do a biopsy of one of the masses, but they arranged it. Everything was set up. I had this trial coordinator holding my hand the entire time. So she met with me when I went out to the facility. She guided me through everything. I signed the releases. When you go into a trial, you have to sign documentation, that you're enrolling in this, and they outline the side effects and whatnot. And the process was laid out very clearly to me, and it was a snap. So I was able to enroll really quickly, which at that point was important because, I knew my disease was growing the longer I waited, and I wanted to get started. So, I think it was like within 10 days, I had already started. It was very quick.
Sounds like they were treating you like a VIP patient.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which you are.
Well, people that enroll in clinical trials are really treated. I was in 3 clinical trials over my 12-year battle with non-Hodgkin. Wow. And, every time I did a trial, I felt like they were rolling out the red carpet, wow. Because you're valued as a participant, because without trial participants, they cannot further these new therapies. So we're really valued, all along the way. They held my hand. I was getting called constantly. Are you okay? Are you having any new symptoms? They really watch you like a hawk because they want to make sure that there's nothing going awry in this trial. And in fact, I had 7 therapies over my 12-year battle, and 3 of them were clinical trials. And I have to say, I felt much more cared for when I was in a trial than when I was in the standard of care.
Yeah,
So,
that's so wonderful
you
to
know,
hear. Yeah, I mean, that's what we always promise our patients, that's the type of care they're going to get and receive, that close watch, that extra eye, an extra hand really, and ear to listen to as well,
right,
that's the extra step, and the extra, that's why we want to encourage patients as well. Just to
right.
help.
And the fact that I ended up doing 3 clinical trials just is proof right there that
Does it all.
the first process was so smooth for me
right.
that,
Right.
there was no reason not to do it. And my perception was that clinical trials offer much more targeted therapies,
Mhm.
so the side effect profiles for those tend to be, much more tolerable because like on the 3 clinical trials I was on, I didn't lose my hair. I didn't, it was very different because of the fact that they tend to be much more targeted, newer technologies, newer therapies.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
was a great experience. And in 2012, I heard about this amazing new thing called CAR T, which is chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy.
Mhm.
And with CAR T, they actually take the patient's own immune system, part of the patient's own immune system, my T cells, and they genetically modify it in the lab, and they return it to the patient and it's very targeted to kill the cancer.
Yeah.
So I had heard about this in 2012 while I was still in my phase 1 study. And I called my oncologist the next day and I said, when is this coming? This is amazing. He said, you're going to have to be patient because they're using it first for aggressive lymphomas and aggressive leukemias and pediatric leukemia patients. So it's going to be several years, but you're doing great on Zydelig. We're going to carry you along as long as that, keeps working. You're going to stay on that because you have stable disease. And so my third trial in 2018 was a phase 2 trial of CAR T for follicular non-Hodgkin's patients.
Amazing.
Great.
So I
Amazing.
was actually the first patient UCLA for CAR
Wow.
T for
Oh my
follicular
goodness.
non-Hodgkin's. Yep.
Wow.
Amazing. So then, Laurie, tell us, what's the $1 million question that everybody wants to know? What was the outcome?
The outcome, for the first time in 12 years, my 7th therapy finally put me in complete remission.
Wow.
Amazing.
And I wish we could put up on the screen my before and after scan.
Yeah.
And we might want to do that after the fact, because you will look at my PET scan before I got CAR T and my body was riddled with tumors. I probably had my oncologist estimated I had 8 pounds of tumor burden
Oh my goodness.
when I got my CAR T cells back. And the beauty of CAR T is it's a one and done. It's not like a chemo, which you get maybe 6 months of chemo, or, I was on the trial for almost 6 years, my second trial, which kept me stable. But CAR T, you get it and then you're done.
Yeah.
And I don't have any long-term side effects. And a month after I got my CAR T cells, they took me in for a PET scan and my disease was completely gone.
Wow.
You're bringing me to
So,
tears. That's amazing. I love that.
and,
That is
after having a 12-year battle to finally get a remission,
I can't imagine the feeling. I truly, truly cannot.
yeah.
We're so happy for you and so excited that you can be here to tell us your story, and I'm sure anybody who's listening is also feeling the same way and feeling the same joy for you.
Yeah.
So,
my son was in kindergarten when I was diagnosed, and he spent his entire elementary, middle, high school with a mom sick in treatment with cancer. And the day after I got out of getting my CAR T in the hospital, he actually left for his freshman year of college in Washington, D.C. So finally, now 2.5 years later, I am still cancer-free and in complete remission.
Amazing.
Thank you very much, Laurie, for sharing your amazing story with us, and congratulations on your amazing accomplishments. You're a true warrior. This truly does show how beneficial clinical trials can be and how much hope they give patients. So let's keep the positivity going and listen in on Mary's journey with clinical trials now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fiona Evans, and I am the lead patient advocate here at Massive Bio. And we are here today to speak with Mary about her experiences with her cancer diagnosis, and she will be participating in our patient ambassador program, and we thank you very much for that, and are looking forward to hearing your story. So if you don't mind, could you give us a little introduction, tell us who you are, and we'll go from there.
Certainly. My name is Mary Kent. I'm actually a physician assistant for 19 years. I'm a wife, a mother of 3. I've been a primary caregiver for a child that battled leukemia. He is now a leukemia survivor. And I myself, I'm a cancer patient. I recently just finished my treatment for Hodgkin lymphoma.
So next, I'm assuming you went on to have treatment.
Right.
And what was that, journey like, and what happened there?
So being that I am a physician assistant, once I had the diagnosis, I had researched what type of treatment that may be involved with my care.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually was able to see an oncologist, and he gave me 2 treatment options. One of them was a kind of standard first-line treatment for Hodgkin lymphoma that I think has been around since around 1975. And it's a successful treatment option for Hodgkin lymphoma in many cases. However, there are many side effects, acute side effects and long-term side effects to be concerned about. And then he also offered me a clinical trial, which I was really interested in because we've been through this journey before, cancer journey before with my son, and he actually was also enrolled in a clinical trial. So I did some research and decided that the clinical trial was something that I wanted to pursue. The clinical trial itself basically took out one of the chemotherapeutic agents that is commonly used, replaced it with a monoclonal antibody that's attached to a chemotherapeutic drug that attacks the Hodgkin lymphoma cells. A benefit of this was that the chemotherapeutic agent, bleomycin, has a lot of pulmonary toxicity, and it was being replaced with brentuximab. If I did the clinical trial, I would also be able to take Neulasta, which would help me fight off infection. The fact that we were in the middle of a pandemic when I was diagnosed.
Yeah, that's important.
Exactly. And being a mother of 3 children, I decided that was something that I thought would be safer for me. The clinical trial also replaced standard radiation therapy that would normally follow the chemotherapy with immunotherapy. And so basically the immunotherapy is an antibody that enhances the immune system to fight off Hodgkin lymphoma. That actually is what I just completed on Tuesday. So based on the options that I had, the clinical trial seemed to be something that I felt was more appropriate for me. And in terms of potential side effects, toxicity, and hopefully long-term survival, I decided to pursue the clinical trial.
What was your experience with the clinical trial itself? What would you say is the difference between, participating in that clinical trial and then, or, going through a regular standard of care treatment?
So I think the care is equally great from the oncology team. One thing that's a little bit different when you enter a clinical trial, you do sign some paperwork, that you are being involved in a clinical trial. You also can sign off on having some of your biopsy and lab work used further for research, which I feel is so important, because that is how we develop these drugs and how we get them approved as standard of care.
Right.
So that was something that I definitely wanted to do. I was assigned a research nurse that kind of followed me along the treatment. Every time I had chemotherapy or immunotherapy, she met with me. And this was really helpful because she would document things that I was experiencing, symptoms that I was experiencing, so that basically with the trial we can learn what type of side effects may occur and how people feel. And I also felt very confident that things were kind of double checked, triple checked every time I received a drug. Everything was time stamped. Everything was really done professionally. And again, this all gets put into the study. So we can again get the things approved, and these drugs need to definitely be available to more patients by participating in a clinical trial. Hopefully we get one step further.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people that, and maybe you would agree, that I think people that are participating in a clinical trial get a little bit extra, follow along, because everything has to be documented so carefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Certainly. I did experience that. And again, it kind of gives you a comforting feeling.
Right.
That things are being monitored and you're getting very good treatment.
I'm sure the cancer diagnosis and treatment itself affected your family, friends, loved ones. And how did that affect them, and how did a clinical trial, affect them? Did they have questions, and how did that go for you?
I think that really stemmed back from even when my child was diagnosed with leukemia, and we chose a clinical trial for him. I think people initially were worried that people that don't understand what a clinical trial is, is he going to get some type of placebo medicine? Is he, or is he going to get a placebo instead of the medicine that he needs? Is it safe? So the issue with clinical trials is that I think still today, many people don't understand completely, unless they've been involved with a clinical trial, researched clinical trials, how safe they are and how important they are.
Right.
And that is something now that I really hope that I can get involved with, and why I'm doing this today is to really put out there how important clinical trials are to have available for patients. And hopefully someone in a similar situation may feel more comfortable when they're approached with the option of going through a clinical trial.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sharing the information is key to helping others understand, how beneficial and how important clinical trials are. So is there anything you'd like to share, with patients that you think it will be useful to them?
So it's kind of confusing, scary time.
Mhm.
And as a medical provider, I just started researching as much as I could, and was able to find one clinical trial on my own. But it was very difficult to do that. Having a resource like Massive Bio would have been amazing. And once I found out about Massive Bio, I was like, this is the future for the best treatment possible for oncology patients. They're kind of having this precision oncology service for patients is the best support system you could find to have to get involved in clinical trials, or just basically finding treatment when you're not sure where to turn. Even if you have an oncologist, sometimes rare cancers, there may not be specific treatment that's been studied, and have this type of service to kind of help guide you is something that I think is really important.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Mary. I think I can speak for everyone in saying we are all so happy to hear that both you and your son have had such successful stories, and to hear how clinical trials have saved both of your lives. You are both role models for other cancer patients out there. Hearing all these stories has generated a few questions from our viewers. Samantha, why don't we go ahead and take the first questions now? So first, could you help answer for us, what is Massive Bio?
Yeah, so Massive Bio is an artificial intelligence-based clinical trial matching concierge service that assists patients with identifying clinical trials close to home. We take away the added stress that's placed on both patients and providers of searching for clinical trials, but we also take the extra step to assist with the enrollment process by setting up appointments and following through the duration of care. Massive Bio is also the National Cancer Institute's official vendor for pre-screening NCI-funded trials, so we can support patients from all over the globe through their cancer journey.
Great, thank you for telling us a little bit more about what Massive Bio does. So it looks like we have another question here. Someone wanted to know, how can I sign up to get started?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. You can call us at 844-627-7246 or email support@massivebio.com. And our team of experts will get the ball rolling quickly as we understand the urgency of finding new treatment options for you.
Yes, our team of advocates and nurses are always available to answer any questions or get you set up quickly. Our next question is actually a popular one. It's one we get a lot. What is the process that Massive Bio follows for clinical trial matching?
So Massive Bio first has all patients sign a HIPAA consent form allowing us to obtain your records. Once we receive those records, we'll be uploading them into our artificial intelligence database and matching you to clinical trials for which you appear eligible or within whatever radius you're willing and able to travel. So for instance, if you can only travel 50 miles, then we will only search for trials within that radius. Or if you can travel 200 miles, we will expand our search. The nurses at Massive Bio, such as myself, will do a final review to make sure the trials are best, and then we will send you the report. Once we release the report, we'll follow up with you and see if your oncologist and yourself are willing and able to pursue any of these trials. If so, we will then assist with the enrollment process, which really helps take that added stress of scheduling appointments and contacting sites away from you and your doctor. We want to be part of your extended care team and take any undue burdens off of your plate.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for explaining that, Samantha. Our next question is related to that process as well. So why do you need to collect medical records?
We need your records so that we can tailor the search for clinical trials specifically to you. At Massive Bio, we understand that every cancer patient is unique and requires different treatment or treatment plans. So we want to make sure we are finding the best trials for you based on your treatment history, current disease status, and stage of disease, just to name a few. We always store our medical records securely, and we never share your information, ensuring we are following HIPAA guidelines.
Great. Yeah, I think that'll help our viewers a lot in understanding our process. So thank you for explaining that. We have another question here from a viewer. Will I have to travel for these clinical trials?
It's really up to you. Currently, we have over 800 lymphoma clinical trials actively recruiting patients in the United States. At Massive Bio, we can search close to your home or globally if you're able and willing to travel. There are many options that you might not be aware of close to your home. And depending on where you live, the best trial for you may require travel. Either way, we want to tailor our search to whatever you as the patient feel most comfortable with.
Great. Yeah, that's exactly right. We want patients to know that we can start the search close to home and then expand if needed and if they agree. So
Absolutely.
I see a couple more questions here. So let's address those. Is there a cost to your services or to the trial?
There's no cost to patients for the services that Massive Bio provides. We're excited to be able to perform the clinical trial search free of charge. As for the clinical trial itself, every trial is different. For the most part, everything that is not standard of care is paid for by the sponsor. This includes medication, labs, and scans that are not considered routine. Everything would be billed to insurance otherwise. This, of course, can depend on each patient's situation and what has been outlined by the sponsor. It doesn't ever hurt to request more information about what's covered and what is not covered, which is something that Massive Bio can help with as well.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like it is not standard across the board, but Massive Bio can help patients kind of navigate that. So we have time for one more question. What would be some of the benefits of using Massive Bio services?
Yeah, Massive Bio can take the burden of finding the next best treatment for you or your loved one. Searching for clinical trials can be really stressful, but our team of experts can ease that stress, and we'll work closely with you from the time you contact us until after you find the best trial and are enrolled. We want to be here to support you through your cancer journey in whatever way we can.
Yeah, well, it looks like we are out of time, but thank you for answering all those questions for us, Samantha. I'd like to thank everyone for being here with us today to listen to the amazing journeys that these two women have been through, as well as to learn a little bit more about the support that Massive Bio can provide during this stressful time. Please feel free to submit any other questions that you'd like answered, and we'll be sure to answer them all. If you'd like to get your oncologist involved as well, we are actually hosting another event about lymphoma and clinical trials in October, specifically for our oncologist network. So please ask them to join and learn a little bit more about what we do. We look forward to supporting you through your cancer journey.